Well, how did you go with the last module, Begin Where You Are? How did you go exploring what happiness means for you and the values and the behaviours associated with that happiness? How are you going with your journal? Are you completing it every day? I asked you to look at a structure for completing that journal. Have you created your own or have you adopted mine? And why? And how is that working for you? Happiness is really about getting to know yourself, taking a brutal, hard look at yourself. And that's what this module is about today. Self-awareness is the key to happiness. Do you like yourself? I'm serious. Do you like yourself? Do you respect yourself? Do you like who you intrinsically are? That's what we're going to look at today. I don't believe we can truly feel happy, authentic happiness, without liking ourselves, accepting ourselves, knowing ourselves, and developing ourselves, growing in wisdom, maturing, growing in perspective, developing our ability to look down upon our lives. Happiness involves looking at the hard questions, really taking a good hard look at yourself. Do you like yourself? I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about seeing yourself as bigger than you are. I'm talking about humble self-awareness. Being able to really look at your limitations and your strengths and accept them. Accepting your limitations is not about apathy. It's not about, yeah, I've got limitations, it's okay. It's about looking at them and saying, yes, I have limitations. I'm not going to be hard on myself. And I'm going to gently and assertively look at personal growth. Gently and assertively look at personal growth. I think that balance between being gentle and assertive is really important, don't you? If we're too apathetic or too detached from who we really are, we don't have the space in which to grow. So we need that honest look at ourselves without hitting ourselves over the head saying, we're no good. I talked to my boys the other day about their game, and I was trying to teach them how to develop the ability to look at their gameplay in basketball and assess what they did well and assess what they did not do well without flagellating themselves, without falling apart and feeling terrible, which is quite a skill because they tend to want to be generic. They tend to want to say, I'm awesome or I'm terrible. And they say, this is the worst day of my life. This is the best day of my life. And realistically, it's not that simple. If I can give you one message in all these videos, it's that life has a lot of colours and is complex. There are no single stories. There is no simple answer. And when we look at life, it's about seeing all the colours. And if we truly look at all the colours with a level of perspective, we're much more likely to feel contentment. And isn't that what happiness is truly about? Contentment. Feeling good, feeling comfortable. I talked in an earlier video about comfort and the importance of comfort. I'm a big one for comfort, but not just physical comfort. I'm talking about emotional comfort. I'm talking about spiritual comfort. Feeling that sense of coziness from the life that we have today, and taking that sense of coziness and stretching and teasing and exaggerating and exploring it. What makes you feel comfortable? Who are you? Do you like yourself? write about all this in your journal and then read back. What have you learned about yourself? What would you do differently? What would you change? Sometimes I find when I read back in my journal, I notice that my patterns repeat and repeat, and I talk about change, but I don't actually do the change. We need to bite the bullet and do the change. And journals can give us that capacity to look down upon our life and go, holy broccoli, I have been following that pattern for 8 months or 4 years or whatever the time period. Journals are a pen on paper and really are that in our face, oh yes, I have been repeating that pattern. Journals also allow us to see when we use negative self-talk. Then we can rewrite that. As my boys say, it's the worst day of my life. I'm a terrible basketball player. And the next day, it's the best day of my life. I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Let's look at all the facts on the table. Let's look at our life realistically with as much positive attitude as we can possibly muster and more. Write. Daily. I often do morning and evening, but it needs to be realistic. If it becomes difficult, commit yourself to one sentence. One sentence in the morning and one sentence in the afternoon, evening. It is the habit which is really important. I talked in earlier video about the importance of ritual. Did you look up what ritual means? It is about significant, meaningful behavioural patterns which are repeated. And ritual is one of the keys to happiness, because human beings gain a level of comfort from meaningful patterns like Christmas, birthdays, but it doesn't have to just be that. It could be a weekly walk with a friend. It could be a monthly game of cards. But it is repeated, it is symbolic, there's air of ceremony, and it often includes rewarding behaviour, it includes engagement, and includes comfort. So think about your behaviour each day. How much ritual do you have in your day? Do you sit down with a knife and a fork and a plate and a bunch of flowers? Do you say a prayer? Do you say a blessing before and after the meal? Do you sit down with family? Do you make it a ritual? Or do you let the occasion of your meal just wander by as you watch TV? Make a ritual of your life. Give your whole life meaning. Notice the day, honour the day. In this chapter of the book about awareness, and that is chapter 2, I look at my childhood and I talk about my childhood. I would like you to reread that chapter, and I would like you to consider doing that for yourself. Have a look at your life. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, don't do it, because sometimes we can have painful memories which are best left alone. Only you know that. Only you know whether it is helpful for you to go back through your childhood or not. For me it was. I wrote about my childhood in the book, Daily Rituals for Happiness, and I wrote about the various experiences I had and how I chose to internalize them. Now, you know that I've been awfully bullied. Really sad story, I guess. And you know that I had learning difficulties. But amongst that, I had very loving, adoring, really, parents. But I chose not to remember that. I chose to remember the bullying. I chose to remember that I was called stupid and weird and psycho and Mr. Magoo and all these names. I chose to remember that. I chose to forget or minimize the love, the Christmases, the birthdays, the family fish and chips, the holidays. I chose to minimize it. When I wrote this book, I went back through my childhood and I realized slowly, over time, that I had a great childhood with a horrible school experience. The act of writing it out again and again and again, as I edited so many times, taught me that my childhood was pretty good. But for many years, 30, 40 years, I have been holding resentment about how cruel my childhood experiences were. So I cherry-picked from my history. Like, imagine your mind being a series of photos. I chose to keep the photos of the negative experiences, and I chose to discard the photos of the positive experiences. Perhaps you'd like to write about your childhood. Perhaps you'd like to look at what have you chosen to remember, what have you chosen to maximize, and what have you chosen to minimize. Are there precious, important memories that you don't really reflect upon, that you don't really enjoy, that you haven't really exploited? As in, did you have a wonderful family holiday? Did you have an incredible experience with a friend? Have you allowed that to become part of who you are? As in, do you know how amazing you are? Do you truly know how sensational you are? Do you like yourself? So consider writing about your childhood. Consider taking a good, hard look at yourself. I want to know how you like yourself, why you like yourself, and I want to know the evidence. Explore. Write about it in your journal. The keys to self-awareness are self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and self-development. Self-knowledge, knowing yourself, being brutally honest. Self-acceptance, knowing your weaknesses and your strengths. Working on your weaknesses with gentle assertiveness. And self-development, the ability to grow as a person, let go of the past. Grow, mature in wisdom. We gain wisdom when we are able to gently look down upon our life, not reactively, not resentfully, not with anger. These emotions are not helpful most of the time. Sometimes anger in some situations can motivate us, but a lot of the times it's just not a proactive emotion. It is the gentler emotions which move us forward. When we find that we have a gentle view of life, we feel a lot more contentment. I want you to think about meditating. We're about 10 days into the course now. I want you to really think about meditating. Try to meditate daily if you can. Now, I don't want a huge effort here. If you want to have a huge effort, that's fine. I want it to be achievable. So 60 seconds twice a day, 8 minutes twice a day. What can you do? I want you to revel in the stillness. Start to learn to be in the stillness. I want you to try not to use a video. I want you to try and use silence in a dedicated space for this one. There are two homework exercises for this module. One is I want you to write down the values which are core to who you are. And next to those values, I want you to write down what behaviors you systematically and habitually follow to honor those values. So what are your core values? Perhaps choose 5 to 10. And what behaviors do you habitually follow to honor and demonstrate those values? Do you demonstrate those values? So write down the values and then write down the behaviors that you demonstrate to make those values real. Think through the process here. It's not just following the homework, it's the thinking, the contemplating here, the reflecting and being open to change. Values are our platform, really who we are, because our skin ages, our body ages. Our values and the demonstration of our values is really who we are. That's what gives our life meaning. Our beliefs are formed from the way we choose to see our life. We can change them. So have a think about what your beliefs are. The homework exercise is the values. And I have a second piece of homework for you. I want you to pretend that you are an investigating journalist, a good one, so not a one that's just interested in the sensational, a good one. And there's two chairs. And on one chair is where your person sits and the other is the journalist. Today you are the journalist. And as the journalist, you sit and look at the other chair where you actually are sitting. So imagine yourself sitting in a chair. You, the journalist, you sit in the other chair and you look towards who you are in the chair and you ask questions. How do you feel about yourself? Do you like yourself? Why do you like yourself? And then you change chairs and answer the questions. So you swap in between being yourself and the journalist. And the goal here is that you investigate your life with a realistic point of view. So when you say, do you like yourself? You might say, oh, not really. Oh, I'm not sure. Well, why aren't you sure? Why aren't you sure? You're great at this, and you're really talented at this, and you're very skillful at this. So your role as the journalist is to investigate and to challenge. And your role as yourself is to be yourself. So this is about confronting yourself and challenging yourself. Again, only do it if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. But the idea is to challenge the norm. So asking questions such as, and put some effort into it, like really think about the questions. How was your childhood? What was your favourite experience? Why? What are you really good at? And how do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And why is that? And how are your relationships? How are you at relationships? What is your proudest moment? So with this homework, you may want to plan the questions. This is about provoking, confronting, challenging yourself to look at new points of view. So as the journalist, challenge yourself. Also show empathy. That must have been a really difficult experience for you. I'm so sorry you went through that. That must have been really hard. But did you bounce back? Were you resilient? What was your best experience? Wow, that sounds great. So use some empathy, demonstrate some compassion with it, and have fun with it. I know it sounds a bit silly, and it could feel a bit silly, but it's so useful. So useful for getting to know yourself, accepting yourself, opening yourself to development. You may want to wait till there's no one else in the house. I found that it's really helped me, and sometimes late at night I'll do it to explore a particular experience and to adapt my point of view. Because as a child, I didn't have much confidence. And sometimes the child speaks to me and says, oh, good, you're weird. And now I say, no, I'm different, but that's okay. And the little voice would go, you're not clever, you're really dumb, you're retarded, which is what I was told as a child. And I say, no, I'm not retarded. I'm extremely intelligent. I'm good at writing. And I'm good at thinking through issues. I understand I'm different, and that's okay. Challenge that little voice inside you. So 2 pieces of homework. Values, look at your values and look at how they align with behaviours. Are you conducting those behaviours? Are you demonstrating the behaviours? And the other one is to do the role play as the investigating journalist. The good journalist, the empathetic, caring journalist, not the sensational journalist. Okay, what else? I'm going to read a little bit from my book to finish off today's module. Remember, my friends, when we are self-aware, we are better able to understand and accept ourselves. We are also more able to love and to give, and we can place ourselves in a position to let go of what we no longer need. As my father says, if our focus is only upon ourselves, there is no space from which we can give to others. Once we accept ourselves, we can let go of the need to prove that we are worthy, because we know. That makes room for us to feel contentment, and this means we are more able to give. Speaking of making space, that is what the next chapter is about. Okay, keep writing in your journal. Work hard to meditate daily. Take a good hard look at yourself. Do your homework and enjoy this process.